Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathleen. In today's video I wanted to go ahead and share with you guys the books I read during the month of November. So in the month of November I read a total of 5 books. I had a pretty good reading month because some of the books that I read were pretty big, and I'm surprised I even managed to get through them and I managed to survive them. So let's go ahead and get started with my wrap up for the month of November. Alright, and so the first book that I read during the month of November was P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. This is the sequel to All the Boys I Loved Before, and I have to say I really love this book. We are introduced to a new love interest who's called John Ambrose, and I have to say I love Ambrose. He was such a great character. I really just enjoyed how different he is from Peter, even though I love Peter as well. And also Netflix just announced the sequel to All the Boys I Loved Before movie, so I'm excited to see Ambrose in the sequel, in the movie, because again I really loved him. And I was texting my friend Chloe from BIBLIO while I was reading this book, and I kept telling her how much I really loved Ambrose. Honestly, I felt guilty liking him because I really liked Peter. I gave this book 4.5 stars. The reason why I knocked half a star is because I felt the ending was rushed. I feel like I just don't like the way Jenny Han ends her books. I had a real issue with how she ended To All the Boys I Loved Before because it felt like a cliffhanger, and I was really angry at that book, and I just felt like the ending of this book was just rushed and not well developed and not well fleshed out. So I did knock off half a star, but I still really love this book, and I cannot wait to see it like in screen, like live. It will be so fun. The next book that I read during the month of November was my wrapped book. In case you are new to my channel, you don't know what it is, at the beginning of this year I took 14 of the books that have been sitting on my shelves the longest, the books that have been unread the longest. I wrapped them, and every month I select one of them and I basically force myself to read that book. So this is just a way for me to kind of like read the books that have been on my TBR the longest. So the book that I unwrapped for the month of November was The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Ray Carson. I have to say I didn't enjoy this book. I thought this book was very boring. I started first physically reading the book, but I just wasn't like getting into the story. I wasn't remotely interested in the main character, who turns out to be this little special snowflake of a character. It just didn't interest me, so I started listening to the audiobook for this book, and I figured that the audiobook might intrigue my interest a little bit more. To be honest, it didn't. Just nothing happened in the story that was even remotely interesting. The ending was pretty cool. I liked how it ended, but otherwise this book was incredibly boring, and I wanted to DNF this book so many times, but I am someone who wants to give a book a real shot before I DNF a book. It's very rare that I DNF a book. So I kept going and I finally finished, and I ended up giving this book 2 stars. I will not be continuing on with the series. Alright, and then the next book that I read was Archenemies by Marissa Meyer. This is the sequel to Renegades. In case you guys haven't heard about Renegades, usually Marissa Meyer writes fairy tale retellings, as with the Lunar Chronicles and Heartless. However, she veered off of fairy tale retellings and started writing something new. So Renegades is all about superheroes. So you have the superheroes and the supervillains, and it's all about like that gray area of what makes someone a superhero and what makes someone a supervillain, and I loved Renegade so much. So this was actually the Once Upon a Read Along's book pick of the month for the month of November. We recently had our live show. I'll leave a link on the screen for you guys to check it out if you guys want to know more of my thoughts and feelings on this book. But I loved it. I gave this book 5 stars. We are introduced to something new, that it's in regards to supervillains and superheroes, and who gets to call themselves superheroes and supervillains, and who gets to have superpowers. So there is one more book coming out, which I'm very happy about, because this book was absolutely fantastic. And usually sequels, like the second book in a trilogy, is usually not the best book in the series, but I have to say this definitely lived up to the hype of the first book. And if you guys haven't read Renegades, I will so highly recommend it. Just go into it without expecting it to be a typical Marissa Meyer fairy tale retelling. storytelling, because it is not that. It is very, very different. It's absolutely fantastic on its own. Alright, and so the next two books that I read during the month of November were books that I read for Tome Topple. In case you guys don't know what Tome Topple is, it's a readathon that was created by Sanford Fonts on Tomes, and it is a readathon where you focus on reading the big books. So the books that you read have to be at least 500 pages. It's just a way for you to get your intimidating big books out of your TBR. And so the first book that I read for Tome Topple was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which is the fourth book in the Harry Potter series, and it's also my favorite book in the series. I enjoyed diving into this world. I have not read the Harry Potter series in a very, very long time. It's been many years, and 2018 was supposed to be the year where I reread all of the books. Since this is book number 4, we are already on the last month of the year. It is not happening. I'm not finishing all of the books this year, so the final books in the series I will be reading in 2019. But I loved this book so much. I loved remembering why it is that this is my favorite. This is, I feel like, the book where things take a turn in the story of Harry, where things get a little bit more serious and a little bit darker. I love the Triwizard Tournament. I just think this book is so entertaining. It is 600 plus pages, so obviously it met the qualifications of over 500 pages for Tome Topple, and I ended up reading this book like about 5 days-ish. I obviously gave this book 5 stars. If I could give it more stars than 5, I would. And then the final book that I read during the month of November is a book that I actually ended up finishing in the second day of December, so I didn't quite finish it during Tome Topple or during November, but I'm still gonna count it for November wrap up, and it is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. This is the last book in the Throne of Glass series, and I cannot believe we made it to this moment. This book is massive. It is 900 plus pages. It took me about a week to get through this entire book, and my copy, interesting enough, this has never happened before, but my copy came with 2 dust jackets, which I thought was pretty funny. I was like, when I read my books, I don't read them with the dust jacket, so as I was taking out the dust jacket to start reading the book, I noticed I had 2. So with the second dust jacket, I'm gonna make something artistic. I'm not really an artistic person. Maybe I'm just gonna cut it out and hang it on my art print wall, so who knows. This book was so long. I'm not gonna lie, I gave this book 4 stars. The big reason why I knocked off stars is because I thought this book was too long. I don't think it needed to be 900 plus pages. I think that this book could have definitely easily have been about 700, maybe even less than that. There was just so much planning and plotting and not a lot of things going on, and there were quite a few battle scenes throughout this book, which was really interesting. But besides that, there was just a lot of pauses in the story, a lot of planning, and characters getting from one place to another, and I thought all of that could have definitely been cut out. I just didn't think this book needed to be as long as it was. But regardless of that, I loved this book a lot, especially the ending. I thought the ending was pretty great. I always felt like Sarah J. Maas writes the best endings to a book. Like, her endings are very explosive. A lot of things happened in the end, and she always writes very satisfying endings, and that's how I felt with this book. I was very satisfied with how it ended. This has been my favorite book since Heir of Fire, and my favorite book in the series is Crown of Midnight. This book is a definitely close second. And there you go, guys. That is the books that I read during the month of December. I read some pretty big books. I ended up reading 5 books, which I'm very proud of. Let me know down in the comments below how many books you read in the month of November and which one was your favorite. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. All of my social medias are links down below, including Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads, if you like to follow me on those platforms. I hope to see you guys on my next video. Have a good day, guys, and keep reading. Bye!